today's video, we're going to be talking about wind energy. Wind energy is produced by windmills. But first, let's understand what is wind. So, the heat produced by the sun when it hits the atmosphere heats up the air and the gases. Now, when the air and gases, when they're heated up, the heated air and gases rise. The reason why is because air and gases are much more less dense than the cold air and gases. So this dramatic shift of hot air rising up and cold air rising down creates a dramatic shift of the air. This could be as gentle as a breeze or as strong as a gust of wind. So this wind, when it reaches the windmill, what happens is that it turns the kinetic energy of that wind to rotational energy so that the windmill can rotate. This rotational energy puts a pressure to where it turns rotational energy to mechanical energy. Mechanical energy turns the motor on, which also is then sent to the generator. The generator turns the mechanical energy to the electrical energy. Electrical energy is transforming this energy, which is then sent to the national grid. The national grid is then distributing this to distribution centers, where it can be distributed to homes. Alright, now let's look at the design of a windmill. So there are three designs that change a windmill. It's the size and blade orientation, the aerodynamic design, and the amount of wind that's there. First, let's look at the size and orientation of a windmill. There's two types of sizes that we have. There's a horizontal way, and there's a vertical way. The vertical way, what happens is that it traps all the wind from all directions. However, it's less efficient. But the horizontal way traps all of the wind and is much more efficient than the vertical way. So, we typically use the horizontal way more than the vertical way. Now let's look at the aerodynamic design. So, in traditional windmills, the windmill over here, it was mostly flat, this part over here. However, in modern windmills, it's mostly curved like airplane wings. The reason why this is because mostly back then, windmills were only used for grinding wheat or pumping water up from a river. However, now we're using it to create electricity. We need the blades to cut into the wind. These blades, when they cut into the wind, create a low pressure air pocket, which is then turned into mechanical energy. So horizontal axis and the curvy blades are the best design as of now. But also, there's another factor, the last factor, which is the amount of wind there is. If there's a huge gust of wind that comes, then a lot of wind will be captured. But if it's very little, like a small breeze, it won't be. So that's one of the cons and one of the pros. Alright, so now let's move on to the pros. The pros is that this is a renewable source of energy and we can keep on using it forever. So it can give an electrical source to all of our homes everywhere in the world. It doesn't pollute the environment unlike other fossil fuels, and also it doesn't take up that much space. Also, another fact to state out, if farmers host a windmill, what happens is they actually get additional income. This is pretty reliable for many people. Now let's move on to some cons. Now, some people claim that windmills are actually blocking the natural scenery. Also, these windmills are a little bit expensive, but they're not as expensive as other things like oil, gas, fuel, etc. The best place to install a windmill would be near the ocean shore. The reason why is because the ocean winds come up, as well as if it's very high, what happens is it's also getting the atmospheric winds. This is easily allowing the windmill to create even more energy. Let's move on to another con. According to a German physicist, the mathematical limit for a windmill to get the amount of wind energy would be 59.3%. That means all the wind that is there, a windmill can only consume 59.3% of the wind, because the other percent is used to keep the blades in a rotational energy. Let's do a small demo. So let's put it over here and screw it up. Alright, so if you look at this, let's talk about the parts of the windmill. So we have a windmill over here, these are the blades. This white thing over here is the shaft. This is the motor and this is the tail, and under it is the LED light. So let's talk about what each individual part does, okay? So this is the blade that pretty much captures all the wind and kinetic energy and turns into rotational energy to keep it rotating. Now this rotational energy is then moving to the shaft, which connects to the motor. The motor turns the rotational energy to mechanical energy. And this mechanical energy then produces electrical energy, allowing the light to on. Let's first tighten this part over here. Now let's put it in front of this fan over here. So look, so the wind energy, the kinetic energy is falling on the blade. The blade's then turning the kinetic energy to the rotational energy to make this blade running. This rotational energy is going to the motor to create mechanical energy, and this mechanical energy is then turned into electrical energy, making the light on. We can see the light, it's pretty red over there. Alright, so if we leave it out like this, there's no light and it's not rotating, put it in front of the fan, light's showing up right there, and it's rotating.